What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of you for Bleach: 1,000 Year Blood War. This is episode 32, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah. Um, a lot of returning characters in this episode, outside of Grimmjow, which we knew that, he made an appearance at the end of the last one. Um, of
Mhm.
course, right off the bat, Grimmjow really wants to pick a fight with Ichigo right off the bat because he just wants to continue where he left off during the Urankar arc, but he's like abruptly
Yeah,
stopped by Neliel, who's somehow returned back into her adult form, thanks to Urahara creating like a special kind of bracelet for her, which allows her to transform into her adult form at will.
yeah. I was really curious how this episode was going to handle, like, Ichigo and Grimmjow interacting again. But it really just feels like it's honestly like how it was back in the original series. Like they're just kind of they have like pretty much just a temporary truce at the moment. They're not really friendly or anything like that. I was wondering if Grimmjow was gonna be, maybe acting a little bit differently now, or maybe Ichigo is more, I don't know, more of an ally, I guess. But that's not really the case. He's like, he pretty much just tells Ichigo he's joining up with them just to take down Yuhaba, just so he can, so they don't destroy Wake Up Mundo, so he can try to kill Ichigo again. That's really all he cares about, is just having, like, pretty much, I guess, a rematch with Ichigo.
Yeah, and soon afterwards, like two more characters drop in out of nowhere. I think it was like I think it was from the Garganta, they said. And then we
Yeah.
finally see like two of the Fullbringers from the Fullbringer arc. I think what was it? Riruka and Yukio make their
Hmm.
appearance for the first time. Um, so and of course this really catches everybody by surprise. But of course Ichigo was unaware of like of everyone being recruited, thanks to Yodoichi just pretty much filling him in after Ichigo was. I mean, we can understand like Ichigo has been preoccupied with his training back in, well, mostly back in the second core.
Yeah. Yeah, so Orihime and Chad, already knew that Grimmjow, I guess, had joined up with Urahara. Um, and I guess maybe, I don't know if they knew about Nell or Riruko, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I could assume
but
that they could have known about Nell, but I don't
yeah.
know if like if they were aware that
Yeah,
Urahara
well,
had.
well, we did see Nell show up, of course, in the beginning of Thousand Year Blood War. But of course, just in her child form again.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it was refreshing seeing her in her adult form, at least, because I mean, she pretty much has this kind of the same personality, more or less, in her adult form, except she, is, I mean, she does act a little bit differently, I guess, just because she, can actually stand up to characters like Grimmjow in that form.
yeah,
Whereas in her child form, she didn't really have her powers,
yeah.
so she couldn't really do
I
anything.
mean, yeah, she does like display her, she does exert her authority over Grimmjow due to the fact that she outranks him, But of course,
Yeah.
Grimmjow counters this by saying that Aizen's not in charge anymore, so like basically rank doesn't even matter. Um,
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's not aware that he says, like, yeah, Aizen's not around anymore,
yeah,
but of
yeah. I
course,
mean,
as we know, he is.
I mean that's gonna change once like Aizen and the Soul Reapers are gonna come up there soon. But yeah, like speaking of that, we do see all of this, the Soul Reapers as pretty much combining their spiritual pressure to power up a gate that'll lead them up to the Soul Palace. But at the same
Mhm.
time, due to Yuhaba like absorbing the Soul King, he he uses his ability to I guess recreate the Soul Palace. Uh, well, at the same time, he disintegrates like part of the Seirete, which of course ascends up to where the Soul Palace is to completely reconstruct it into pretty much a new castle or whatever it is.
Yeah, I guess he's trying to, like, change it into the new, like Quincy Palace.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so he's basically, like, rebuilt it to look. I think it was called the Wandenreich or whatever, where they were, like, hiding away.
Yeah.
To, I guess, sort of more resemble that. Um, but yeah, so all the Shinigami are trying to create this gate, and they don't really have enough power to do it. Like there's they need more. Like I think they said that they needed they didn't have enough to actually like finish the gate. But then of course all the Vizards show up and they provide, I guess, enough power to actually like finish the gate to the palace.
Yeah, and I think what was it? I think what was it the device that Mayuri was using? It's like it's
Oh, well, it was like an amplifier, like
yeah.
so. Yeah, like he of course conveniently had like an amplifier to amplify their spiritual energy to finish the creation of the gate. And
Yeah.
then that's how they eventually get to the royal palace. Meanwhile, Ichigo and the others are traveling through this box that I think apparently Riruka had created, that can travel through through the Gargantia, up to back to where like Yoruichi had left one of her like whatever, I guess, her nails, back where they were trying to stop Yuhaba. So I guess it's traveling back up to that. But while they're doing that is when Yuhaba, I guess, was reconstructing the royal palace into the Quincy, like to look like the Quincy Palace. Because Yoruichi points out, like, if they had not been, like, when they get back up there, that if they hadn't been, I guess, traveling through the Gargantia at that time, then they would have been caught up in all that.
Yeah. So eventually they do make it up to, well, what was supposed to be the Soul Palace into the new Quincy Palace. So everybody else outside of Yukio and Ruruka decide to stay behind. Uh, decide to to infiltrate the palace, while at the same time Haschwalth reports that Ichigo and the remaining, well, pretty much all the Soul Reapers from the Seirete are headed their way. So of course they're ordered to dispatch them as soon as they infiltrate the palace.
Yeah. And we also, I guess, finally see Yoruichi's brother show up too, because she mentions that she can sense his spiritual pressure there.
Yeah.
And her brother just immediately like tries to jump, like, I guess, jump off the side of the of where like the royal palace had disintegrated. I guess he assumed he'd be able to use like reishi to walk, like maybe to walk on the air. But he ends up just almost falling to his death
Yeah.
before he's
Well, it's
yeah.
mainly because you have using whatever kind of like spiritual pressure, whatever it is, that I guess it negates those kinds of reishi step abilities.
Yeah, they basically, like Byakuya points out, I guess they don't have any like that I guess their spiritual pressure is being, or well, they're I think like the Quincy's have, like, I guess essentially like have the advantage there. Like they're the Shinigami like aren't able to fight as they would back in the Soul Society. But yeah, like then we of course cut back to Yuhaba, and he's created like a throne room, kind of like what he had back in the Wandenreich, and that's where he's informed that Ichigo and the others are there. So yeah, it's I guess like he, and then we cut back to Ichigo and we see that they're, I guess, looking upon, I guess essentially like his main stronghold or whatever, like where Yuhaba is like, I guess, the main castle where he's at. So yeah, I guess this is kind of where maybe the final, maybe like climactic battle of the arc is probably going to take place.
Yeah.
Is in this like reconstructed royal palace.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much all hands on deck with everyone headed up there. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, well, obviously it's going to cause a lot of mayhem, like it did with season 2. I mean, I have to wonder like how they're going to handle this. I mean, because of like what happened back in season 2, like we pretty much got a lot of focus on all the other Soul Reapers outside of Ichigo, and he barely got any screen time because of that. So I'm wondering if pretty much like the second half of this core is gonna end up being the same way.
Yeah. I'm hoping that Ichigo does get more screen time. I mean, so far at least, he's gotten a decent amount of it. But yeah, it has kind of gone between him and the other characters, which I don't mind. The only problem I had with part two is that Ichigo was like pretty absent for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at least here he's actually like actively involved in what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. And I did like, he's getting, well, he did get some amount of, additional screen time, but it just seems like, that, with everyone just coming up there, getting ready to the final battle, it looks like, it just seems like Ichigo is gonna be put on the back burner again until like he's gonna be, I guess, back in the forefront, going up against Yuhaba, by, well, if we could assume it's like the fourth, obviously the fourth core, fourth final
Yeah.
core.
Yeah. Like in a way the climax reminds me a little bit of like Brotherhood, for instance, where it felt like every character was involved in that.
Hmm.
It kind of feels the same way here, where they have pretty much every character who at least is still alive in the series just involved in what's going on.
Yeah.
So they're trying to they're trying to focus on everybody for as much time, I guess, as they can for each character. But the problem is there's just such a huge cast of characters where it just feels like at times where Ichigo just kind of gets taken out of the, he's not really that present for long enough in an episode, and everybody else is just, they're trying to focus on what's going on with them.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the episode though. I'm pretty excited for what's going to happen now that like everybody's kind of in the same place, and I guess they're all going to going to go fight Yuhaba, but it'll probably be like. I'm guessing what's going to happen is that all the Sternritter are going to, end up fighting, each of the lieutenants and captains, I guess, depending on which one they're put up against. Kind of like in the initial, I guess, invasion of the Soul Society, where each of them were sometimes fighting a different lieutenant or captain. It's probably going to be the same way here, where maybe some of them are going to have like a rematch with them. So yeah, I think we can probably expect something like that with the. I guess what's probably going to be maybe like the climax of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. But yeah, I don't have much else to say though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, it was a decent episode that we finally got some characters back back into the fold again with Grimmjow finally. I could assume that he's going to be back on action for the first time, as well as Nell. As for how they're going to handle, I guess we could assume that this is going to be the second half of this core, that whether more attention is going to be put on all the other characters and leave Ichigo in the back burner until maybe by the end of this core, or starting at the from the beginning to the end of core 4.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Yeah, guys, but that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.